This podcast was recorded on the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation.
Oh, how I love to be around you.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome back to the pod.
Welcome back to another week of Mad About You, wherever you are in the world and whatever you're doing. We appreciate having your ears. It means a lot to us. Now, guys, this week on the pod, if you tuned in last week, you would have seen that Jad and I did a little episode on sort of our sleep journey with Fletcher in the first year and essentially the struggles that we went through and then what led us to pretty much reaching out for help and outsourcing a little bit of help because we didn't know what we were doing. Jad posted about this online, about the service that we got to come to our house pretty much and help us, and there was such an influx of questions and curiosity about it. We're literally, thousands and thousands of messages. People wanted to know, and so we decided that we would just get the lovely lady who helped us out with Fletch and his sleep to come on the pod today. So we have Sarah from Swoop Baby here with us today in studio and you guys actually sent through a lot of questions for us to pass on. So this is more an episode that you guys have essentially written, and they're questions that you guys have asked and you want to know about sleep training and the service that Sarah provides. And then Sarah, I'm not sure if she's listened to the pod or if she knows, but we end all of our episodes with an Ask Mum and Dad, where one of our listeners writes in with a question and we attempt to help them with a dilemma. And we have, I did select this one strategically today, and it comes from a couple who are struggling a little bit with their connection after a baby. So we thought maybe you could help us out with that one. But firstly, let's just welcome Sarah to the pod. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for joining us, Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me, Lachie and Jadé. It's great to be here.
Absolute pleasure. So firstly, before we get into the chat, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you found yourself in this line of work and a little bit about the services that you are currently offering with Swoop Baby Co.
I'm a mum to two very busy boys. I've got Wolfie, who's 4, and Teddy, who's 2. And before I had Wolfie, I found myself doing a big deep dive on all things baby sleep. Sleep was so important to MJ and I, and I wanted to feel really confident around what I was doing with Wolfie. So basically had Wolfie and was able to see really consistent sleep, which we were very fortunate about. And I started passing on that knowledge to friends and family, and, I had a lot of friends and family that were really sleep deprived that first year, and being able to help was really rewarding and a passion that I grew to really love. So yeah, I became a baby and toddler I became certified baby and toddler sleep specialist, and
Can I ask what that entails, as in just excuse my ignorance?
Yeah, so it was quite an extensive course on all things baby and toddler sleep. There was a lot of practice involved. I was had 20 in-home or remote consulting experiences I had to do, plus a lot of assignments, a lot of theory, all science-based, a lot of research papers. It was fascinating and obviously very helpful for me as a new mum with Wolfie, and really important knowledge that I love to pass on and share with friends and family. So from there, having studied the course, Swoop Baby was born, my third baby now. And, it's basically a hub for all things baby sleep. So we've got products, Baby Sleep Essentials. Our swaddle is our signature product. I'm a big believer in the swaddle for newborns.
We swaddled, it didn't work.
Really?
Yeah.
You didn't have the Swoop Baby
Yeah, obviously.
No.
Obviously.
Yeah, look out, baby
Don't
number
worry, nothing
2.
worked. I don't think it was the product.
Baby number 2 will be sorted with the swaddle. And we also offer the services, of course. So we've got the newborn care, which is our night nannying service called Newborn Nights, which I love, looking after the babies. It's where we go in home and just give parents some respite. So it's about looking after the baby, taking care of that night shift, feeding, burping, settling, and getting them off to a good night's sleep as well, while mum and dad can catch up on their own sleep.
So is that one while you do that service, are you going and attempting to teach the baby new skills, or is it literally just you're there, whatever the baby gets up to, you just look after it while the parents sleep? Like, is it different to sort of how you helped us, or is it the same service?
So I it was more sleep training with Fletch, which we don't do until babies are 4 months of age.
Sure.
But I'm a big believer in establishing healthy sleep habits early on, because that can often negate the need to formally sleep train down the track. So we put a lot of those practices in place when we're in home, you know, in terms of making sure the sleep environment is right, making sure they're well swaddled, well fed, and, you know, hands-on gentle settling, so that we can sort of set them up for sleep success. And hopefully, you know, we often see that they're getting really decent blocks even when they're quite little, because of that settling process that we do. And then in the morning, we like to give the parents notes of what's gone on overnight, how we've settled, what we think the baby's responding well to, so that they feel confident in the day too, and what they need to do to try and get a bit of sleep throughout the day.
Sure.
And then as well as your newborn service, so you obviously offer the service that we engaged in.
Yeah, so the sleep conditioning programs are the big one at the moment, especially. We've got, we train babies from 4 months of age to children of 5 years of age. Obviously, strategies are very different for babies and as they are for the older toddlers and kids. So we offer remote or in-home support. So, yeah, for you guys, I came in home for the 4 nights and, take care of the I guess, most challenging part of the sleep training process, those initial first few nights. We establish a good routine. And again, it's similar to the newborn nights in that you guys get the notes the next morning. The observations, what I found worked really well, Fletch, or the babies that we work with, and what I think you need to do today. Often we ease into it in the day. We don't want to put too much pressure on parents. It can be quite a daunting experience. So we go slow in the day and focus on getting the nights into a good place, and then we tackle the days when parents are comfortable.
People did ask, obviously, people have varying ages with their children and difficulty at different stages. So a question that kept coming through was like, what is the prime age to start something like this? So as you said, you start from around 4 months, but is there, or within the research that you found, through your studies, is there any prime age where setting these habits will really stick, or that it works faster than a different time period? Or
good question. Look, as I said, I'm a big believer in laying the foundations, the strong foundations for good sleep early. You can do that from, when the babies are born. But in terms of sleep training specifically, yes, 4 months is when babies are neurologically mature enough to learn how to self-settle, self-soothe. So you can start from there. I personally love sort of the 9 to 12 month age, because we know often the babies are well established on solids at that point, and we know they don't need a feed overnight. So we can see really fast results at that age, and great progress as we've seen with Fletch.
Good to know. Because I was wondering, if we started early, you kind of, once you do it, you're like, why the hell did we not do this earlier?
I know.
So you see the results and you're like, oh my gosh, I could have been sleeping this whole time. So, but then it's good to know that I guess he slots into that period. And yeah, you're right. He has dropped that night feed with it, what feels like with ease. The feed didn't ever feel like an issue.
Yeah, straight away.
Yeah, so... Yeah, good to know.
Yeah, and look, saying that, I do a lot of 6-month-olds, and that's great too. It's just you don't often see what a lot of people like to see. My baby slept through the night.
Yes.
It's still perfectly acceptable to be giving a 6-month-old, even 7-month-old, a feed overnight. Yeah. So in terms of...
If he still wanted a feed now, I'd be happy. Just 1 week a night, or 2 weeks a night, I would be
Well, I
still
remember,
stoked,
at the start, you're like, if we could just have 3 weeks a night, we'll be happy.
Yeah,
so,
which is funny because that's some people's bad.
Yeah.
Some people go, oh, we had 3 weeks last night, and we were going, we'd love 3 weeks.
Yeah,
so,
we had 12.
And now we get 0. So we are absolutely stoked with that. And I guess that kind of leads into one of the other questions that a lot of people had, which is how quickly can you normally see results? I know it's a hard question to answer, but I guess a lot of people want to know, how quickly am I going to see my baby sleep better? better. Yeah.
Everyone likes instant gratification.
Yes.
these days,
Oh,
so-
absolutely. And when you're feeling quite anxious about it all, I think when you start to see the progress, it really helps you feel better about
Yes.
what you're doing. So, yeah, we often see really good progress within 3 to 5 nights and sometimes definitely sooner. In saying that, our programs are 2-week programs. So whether you do the in-home or remote support, the in-home comes with 2 weeks of remote support. And I always encourage parents to really stick it out with the 2 weeks, record a sleep log. You know, I'm with them via phone and text, supporting them every step of the way for that 2-week period if things change. There to troubleshoot. And yeah, giving it that 2 weeks just ensures you're really kind of ingraining those new habits and setting them up for long-term sleep success.
You did mention, sorry, Jad, that you just said like the results normally happen between 3 and 5 days, for example. And that is funny that you say that, because before we got in touch with you, which people, if they listen to last week's episode, will know that we actually did try doing space soothing ourselves twice without you. And both the first nights we essentially gave up. We were just like, oh, this is too hard. Or, you know, like we just weren't emotionally there. And when you're already exhausted and overwhelmed and then you add this on top, it's probably, you know, the straw that breaks the camel's back. And then when you actually came in, Jad and I were sitting in bed, I think, the second night, and we were still like, oh, this is really hard. Like, and I think Jad told you, I think she came down and had a chat with you and was like, oh,
In the
like we might, you know, I don't know if this is, you know, right. And she almost wanted to pull the pin. And then you said to her, you said, just let me come back one more night. And like, you know, normally results are seen on the third night. And then, alas, results were seen on the third night, you know, and so we were that close to pulling the pin again on this thing, because it is, it's quite, you know, emotionally draining and hard.
Really
and
is.
so, I can attest to the fact that, you know, that 3 to 5 day window, if you do, you stick it out, you hopefully will see some progress. And that's even, you know, we've seen more progress even since then, which is, amazing. And we're very lucky.
Yeah, absolutely. It is, as I say, it is it can be a really challenging time for parents. Every baby is different. And, you know, often if the babies are a little older and, you know, toddlers, especially in those foundations, those sleep associations, whether they've been co-sleeping the whole time, they're a lot longer, probably more ingrained. It can take a bit longer. But, yeah, you know, Fletch, 12 months, you know, the first couple of nights were challenging. Second night, I think, was the hardest for you guys. But from there, like, you know, you start seeing, you know, less time to self-settle and less wakes. And then you see the happy little baby the next day waking up and smiling at you. And that's when you start feeling pretty good about it, I think.
You get reassured almost that it's not, you know, changing them or negatively affecting them, because you worry, you know, when you as like a parent, your instinct is like, baby's upset, crying, go help, go solve the problem, you know, and then when you see them cry for an extended period of time, you worry that maybe you're not doing the right thing. But then I would say that now him getting huge long chunks of sleep, which he literally has never had in, you know, 12 months on earth, like it's almost weird. This is probably just me, you know, hypothesizing, but I literally see like I would say like greater developments even like overnight. Like I see him progress with like little things like language or like walking, like things like that. And I don't know whether that's because he's like really, you know, his brain is resting and he's having time to develop and grow more so than he was, you know. So
No, I feel the exact same way, by the way. It's like, not just you. It's so weird. It's like we wake up and he's a new baby every day versus before it was maybe every week felt like he was developing, and now it's you wake up and it's like you seem far more engaged than even yesterday. You're way more alert. You're way more communicative. Got there. But yeah, I agree with Locke. It's strange. It feels like overnight now he gets this rest and he's like, I've downloaded an upgrade, you know, which is amazing and so wonderful and reassuring, because he's had broken sleep his whole life. And, you know, there is a point where you get worried and you're like, you know, there's a lot of studies that prove like a lack of sleep is really not great for a baby's health in many different ways. So that's one of the things that comes into play when you consider, you know, making a move like this and needing to kind of have some sort of intervention to help your child learn how to sleep. So yeah, we're both seeing that he's just like, seems like he's growing overnight, which is phenomenal and really beautiful and exciting.
I let him drive to the shops the other day.
Which is on fire.
We did not do that. Another question that came through very frequently, a lot of people are asking, how do I stop my baby from waking early? So maybe they've got a bub that's actually sleeping quite well, but they cannot stop those 4 a.m., 5 a.m. wakes.
Not everyone wants to go to the gym at 4 a.m.
Yes, it is a tough one. The early wakes are tough. And obviously, there's not a lot of sleep pressure at that time of day for the little ones to get back to sleep. So it does
For
take...
those who don't know, could you explain what sleep pressure is?
Yeah, so sleep pressure is the build-up of time that makes babies feel like it helps babies get to sleep. So it's that awake window that they've got to build that pressure that makes them feel ready to fall asleep and settle. So the early wakes, obviously, they've had a good sleep up until 5 a.m. hopefully, and therefore, it takes real persistence and consistency to get on top of it. Now, I think you can start with the sleep environment. You want to make sure that that's well set up to negate the early wakes, and you want to ensure it's a nice dark environment. We don't have the morning light coming in that's going to disrupt or wake them. Also, the environmental noises, the garbos, the birds. White noise is a great tool for blocking out the environmental noises that could cause a bit of disruption and that early wake. Also, the room temperature, like it's obviously very chilly at the moment, and the temperature drops to its lowest at 3 a.m. And so making sure that your baby's dressed appropriately for that cooler temperature is important, because that can often be a cause of early wakes. Hunger is a big one. The little babies often still do need a feed. So I recommend, if they're 6 months or even 7 months of age and waking at 5 a.m, maybe they're hungry, and if you can give them a quick, good feed, they'll then go back to sleep till 7 a.m. That's the environmental stuff. And then it's the timing, the nap timings play a big role. If you're starting the first nap too soon, often babies can,
Like they need to wake up to build the pressure to go down.
Yeah, or often babies, if they've got that nap that's, kind of before 9:30, they sort of wake early anticipating that next nap's coming quite soon. So, it's important that we give them that good awake window before going down.
I think you mentioned to us as well that if he does, because in the early stages he still was getting up, at that time, you said to not pretty much take him out of the cot and start the day, because once you do that, he'll know that if he wakes up again tomorrow at that time, that his day will start and things will happen. So you almost have to just encourage them to go back to sleep, and once you take them out once, they'll think that this is okay for me to essentially do in the future.
Yeah, that's right. It's reinforcing the early wake if you get them up and take them out and give them breakfast or have that social interaction. That's what they're craving. That's what they're wanting. So if you're doing that, that's going to encourage them to wake up early the next day. You're spot on. The other thing is, the timing of naps is a big one. And if they're not getting enough sleep time during the day, they will, go into bed overtired. And if they're overtired, that can also cause the early wakes. So getting on top of the naps, the timing, the balance of that sleep across the day certainly helps. And even like an earlier bedtime can be key in helping with the early wakes. So
Sure.
Yeah.
Earlier bedtime will counter an earlier wake. That's interesting.
Yeah. So it's a big myth, the old later bedtime will hopefully mean later sleep. It doesn't.
It didn't work with us.
Doesn't work.
He was going to bed at 9 o'clock sometimes. And
Oh, look, nothing worked for us.
yeah.
Okay, what is your best advice for sleep regressions? I mean, it's such a common topic. So many parents deal with this issue. What happens when you finally get into a good sleep routine and the sleep regression smacks you in the face and you just feel like everything's gone out the window?
Yeah, it's a tough one, and there's a lot of anxiety around the 4 month of regression. That's obviously the big one, and it's actually positive change. That's when their sleep cycles mature, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but the 4 month onwards is a great time to start teaching them to self-settle, because when babies can self-settle and resettle themselves, these developmental leaps or regressions that of course come into play often don't impact them, because they know how to fall asleep and stay asleep. And so I guess my biggest advice would be to, when you're ready, gently encourage your baby to learn how to self-settle independently, and often they'll sail through these leaps or regressions with minimal disruption. And if there is some disruption, like, not to say that once you've sleep trained you're never going to have a bad night again. Of course there may be disruption, but they'll bounce back pretty quickly because they know what they need to do, and they've got those skills, and it's just about being consistent with what you were doing previously, and they'll get through it pretty easily.
Something that we, I think, did where perhaps in some stages we were building some good habits and then we would fall back on them was when he would get sick. So we would be starting to do a few things right and see progress, and then he would go to the park or see a friend and he would get sick and he would come home, and then the cot was just like a no-go zone. You know, he would literally touch the mattress and then he would scream, and the only way we could find, you know, respite and get some sleep was if he slept next to us. So is it sort of the same with sickness? Is like the same to a regression? Because I'm sure every kid gets sick, you know, the more they go out, the more they go to daycare, interact. So as they get more social, they get sicker, you know, every month. So what's your, what would be the best advice, you know, when they do get sick? Is it just stay the course and, you know, you have to keep the sort of structure and routine and don't sway sort of?
Yeah, no, not at all. You definitely want to take their lead in terms of sleep. Often sleep is healing. So if they need more sleep when they're sick, we tend to follow their lead there. And, you know, with settling, you know, naturally you go with your gut. Like, if in the respiratory sicknesses can be really scary. So I understand when parents want to bring the babies into their bed and go back to contact napping, for example. I always recommend going into the baby's room and actually sleeping on the floor next to them if you're worried, rather than kind of throwing everything out the window if you had slept trained and got them in these new habits. But if you can, timing-wise, go with the flow, do what you need, ensure they have more sleep if they need it. The settling process, be there to comfort them for sure in room, but don't throw everything out the window would be my advice. In saying that, if they've been in really good patterns and they've got good foundations, they will bounce back quickly when they're feeling better. It's just about going back to that routine that you've been in and that settling method that you've chosen, and they'll bounce back pretty quickly.
Does it take them long to break the habits? As in, let's say you build good habits and then they get sick and you go back to contact napping and, for example, co-sleeping. Would it take one night to throw that all out the window? Would it take 3 nights? You know, like your experience,
look, every
week,
baby,
you know?
every baby is different, and new habits can form quite quickly, especially as they get older and you give them a bit of leeway. And next thing, you know, you're kind of doing all these things that they may request, and new habits can form quickly. So consistency is key, and if you can just be as consistent as you can when you're ready, they will respond in good time. It's not going to hopefully take you as long as it has, you know, with the initial sleep training, because they've already learned. It's just getting them back on.
Got the skills somewhere in their mind. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Why do babies have false starts, and how do we stop them from doing that?
What's a false start, Jadé?
And that too. My understanding of a false start is when they go down and they wake up within the first, is it hour?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. They could wake up within 20 minutes, could wake up within 30 minutes.
What do you call it if your baby wakes up like 4 times in the first hour? Is that a different terminology?
Fletcher. You call it Fletcher.
Quadruple false start. Look, I see false starts a lot with the younger babies, and it's often there's a few reasons for it. One of the reasons might be that actually we haven't given them enough time to digest their food or milk and they're having tummy trouble. That could be one. They need a burp. The most common one is that they're overtired and they've got higher levels of cortisol and they can't get themselves into that deep sleep. So, yeah, it's all about looking at the sleep across the day, ensuring they've got enough age-appropriate sleep for the day and they're not going into night too overtired.
That explains why Fletcher was waking up 4 times in the first hour when we were putting him down at 9 p.m. some nights.
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah, could be. Could be that.
Yeah, an earlier bedtime can be a really easy win, actually. Yeah. So
Just to note for anyone who didn't understand that little crack, we used to put him down at about 9 o'clock most nights, and now we get him into bed between 6 and 6:30. So
Yeah.
we even feel so
Life-changing.
vastly different because it's like we have more of a night together, or we eat meals together now, and we actually hang out and talk, which is
Our
nice,
nights
so.
are back. We get our
Your
nights
nights
back. Our
back.
bed's back. We don't have a baby in the middle of the bed. Wake up every half an hour.
We didn't need that example, but it is much better. But Sarah, I actually wanted to ask. This is not a question from people. This is actually my own one. I was just kind of thinking, we have like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where we need shelter and food and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What would you describe as like the hierarchy of needs with baby's sleep? Like, is it warmth? Is it dark room? Is it white noise? Is it full tummy? What are the things that you would just deem to be the most important for parents that are just they need to look and find these things really quick to fix?
yeah. So I'm a big believer in a well-fed baby. If they can feed well, they will sleep well. So full tummy, absolutely priority. And then secondly, the quick wins are the sleep environment. So ensuring they're warm, ensuring they're they've got that nice dark room and they're swaddled if they're newborns, replicating that environment that they had in the womb. So the swaddling and the white noise that is similar to the sounds that they were hearing. And then, looking at a nice predictable wind down routine. Babies thrive on predictability and routine. So that's sort of probably the order I'd do it.
Yeah, sure.
Getting more into kind of the service you provide and how it all works, there's a lot of people with a lot of question marks that maybe don't understand like what sleep training is, or what does that mean, or it looks different for a lot of different people. And I guess one of the biggest questions is, do you let the babies cry? And if so, what are your methods and how long do they cry for?
So often if a baby is overtired, they're going to be crying. I don't think that you can do sleep training without a cry. In saying that, we don't leave the baby to cry. We make sure they feel really supported and we do what we need to make sure they're comfortable and set up for success. You can definitely negate the tears by making them feel comfortable, looking at the sleep environment, making sure that they're not going into the night overtired. I always say, if you can start sleep training at night as opposed to the day, it's the way to go because they've got the nice sleepy hormones, the melatonin, to help them settle. Doing what you can to get good sleep in the day is going to set them up and lessen the tears. It's just about ensuring that you're there, you're supporting them, and you're doing what's going to work for the family. There's lots of different methods. There's in-room methods that some parents prefer. In saying that, others prefer out of the room methods because being in the room, and being close with your baby, sometimes they feel like you're dangling the carrot but not always able to do what they need if we're teaching them how to sleep. So giving them a bit of space, allowing them the opportunity to cry, that is just them communicating. It's just them simply saying, hey, Mum, I'm really tired and I don't know how to get to sleep yet. That's okay, and it's listening to those cries and understanding what the cries mean. So, often there's the protest cry, and with space soothing, we go in at intervals and we check in and we make sure they're okay. We reassure them that we're there and, reassure ourselves that they're fine. Often when you leave the room, they're going to kick off because they're not used to you leaving. They're used to you picking them up and feeding or, bringing them into your bed. So they'll kick off, but then it might only be a minute or two, and then they start to slowly wind down. They start to have breaks. The crying becomes intermittent, and that's when you know that they're getting themselves off to sleep. Some babies cry as a way of self-soothing. There's definitely babies that are quite noisy, and even in their sleep I see that during the night there might be the odd 10-second cry and they resettle and go back to sleep, and that's when they're transitioning through their sleep cycles. Babies can be very noisy. They can grunt, they can moan. So, the crying is never nice. No parent likes to hear their baby crying, but it's often pretty short-lived. And it becomes less and less with consistency of your chosen sleep method. And I think as we saw with Fletch, I think, the first 2 nights were hard, but we started then seeing dramatic decrease in that crying and how long it took him to get to sleep. Typically, a baby's pretty confused for that first 20 minutes when you're first starting out with your sleep training. So there's a bit of crying. Then I'd say on average it's about 20 minutes. And then there's the second 20 minutes. So, it could be up to 40 minutes, but that's a lot slower. That's when they're winding down. That's when you're starting to see breaks. And it might be that, they have a 30-second break and you're like, yes, they're there. They've gotten themselves off to sleep. And then they might do a bit of a protest cry again. And then they'll have another break and then a cry again and then another break. And then, they're almost there at that point.
And it's different for every baby, I'm guessing. I think that's the key. Yeah, different for every baby.
Temperament plays a role. How old they are plays a role. As I say, the toddlers, they can often, it's the tantrums, it's the standing up, it's the louder cries at that point. It's them calling out, which can really pull on your heartstrings.
Oh, thank God he can't talk yet. That would melt me.
I never leave a baby to cry it out, and I think there's a lot of confusion around sleep training and cry it out, and do we just shut the door and go? Absolutely not. And if at any point, the crying's really intense, we can pick them up, we can give them a cuddle and, put them back down, reassure them, and then continue on with the process.
And it very much felt like if at any stage we wanted to pull the plug on something or adjust something, you were absolutely ready to do that. And from the get-go, I think I kind of said, like, what if I don't want to do this? In the very beginning stages where you're not sure how it all works, you're not sure what to expect, and you're kind of asking questions, what if I don't feel comfortable with this? And you're very much like, we can absolutely do whatever you're comfortable with. It's totally up to you. Here's what I suggest. Here's what I've noticed works best. Yeah. And then it was very much like, okay, well, if you're suggesting that, you're the expert, let's give that a go. And, we did. And obviously there was night 2 that got a bit more difficult, and then conversation followed, and it was very much, again, reassuring of like, I'm absolutely happy to take your lead and pull back or do this or do that or whatever you guys need to do. Here's what I suggest, because I'm seeing progress that we weren't recognizing. We were going, what progress? Like it felt very much like I explained to you, I was like, it was really hard for us last night, blah, 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 blah. And then when I actually looked through your notes, it was significantly different to night 1. You're hearing crying and you're kind of like, that's hard. Yeah. So that's just all that you're hanging on to. Whereas when you look at the notes and go, oh my God, he actually settled way quicker than night 1, and he actually put himself down at that point and blah, 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 blah. So when you look at the notes and then you assess, and then you kind of gave us a nudge in the right direction, and I'm really, really glad that you did. And it wasn't at all pushy. It wasn't at all like, no, we're doing this. It was very much like, here's what I suggest. Look at the notes. He's actually done really well. I'm seeing progress. I think one more night you'll be surprised at what we see. And that's all we needed. We just needed that little bit. And that's why I find the service is so beneficial in that there's constant contact. The conversation's 2 ways. It's not, here's my program, see you later. This service that we specifically engaged in found really helpful in that sense. And especially having you in home as well was that, and I kind of touched on this when I shared our experience online, and some people said, how can you let a stranger settle your baby? And I'm like, well, strangers take care of your kids at daycare and at school and put your kids to sleep in daycare. And it's
Also,
like,
don't you get driven, like when you get on the bus, is the bus driver a stranger? When
There's
you're going
strangers
for surgery,
everywhere.
Isn't your surgeon a stranger?
we get to know each other, we have conversations, and then you come a little bit earlier to get to know also Fletcher before you then help put him down.
Yeah.
And so it's this development of the relationship and then development of understanding of what we're comfortable with and who Fletcher is. And then the fact that you're putting him down, I think Locke agrees, found way more helpful because when we tried to do it on our own, it was bloody hard. It's really hard. And we found that it was really helpful to know that he was in safe hands and you knew what you were doing and you were doing it in the way that was best for him. And it's not like we didn't run off and go, see you later. We were downstairs having dinner and, we're very much present and ready to be involved if you suggested so. But yeah, I think that it's actually amazing to have that service. It takes a village, and sometimes the village is a service like this where it literally saves your life. Like that's how it feels, You're at rock bottom. You don't know what to do. You've got nowhere to turn, and it's like we have to do something. And so if people like you didn't exist, I just don't know what we'd do. So thank you. Yeah. And yeah, I think that that specific element of it is actually amazing and makes it easier for you as a parent.
Yeah. And look, thank you, Jadé. I know it wasn't easy for you guys, and I know you thought long and hard about it, and a lot of parents do. The great thing was you were so ready for this, and you believed in me. I think you trusted me in the program, and therefore you saw really good results. And I think that's an important point to land for parents. Like, there's absolutely no need to sleep train if you don't want to sleep train, and you don't want to go into sleep training if you're not ready. You want to kind of get to a point where you're ready because you don't want to kind of chop and change and confuse the baby and put them through this, again. And it's not, it can sound like a really daunting, scary experience, but actually, we make sure that you feel quite calm and relaxed about it. The baby has obviously, had that time with me, and you can see that we connect, and he's comfortable. Fletch was comfortable with me.
I think he ran over to you and cuddled you immediately. We're like, okay, all good.
Sweet. Yeah, he was so cute. So, yeah, and, it's having that rapport the whole time. When you've got questions, hey, and it gives you the confidence and that reassurance, I guess, having someone else do it, that you're doing it right and what you're seeing is normal. And, look at this amazing progress. It's easy to forget where you were, but reminding yourselves of where you were and why you're doing it, and me being able to help do that too, you quickly realise that, you're onto a good thing, especially when you're seeing that beautiful, happy boy wake up the next day. And as you say, walking, running, doing all the things, having the energy. Yeah, it's amazing.
So there's a few people who come up and say, look, I know I'm not comfortable with crying. How or what is sleep training if I don't want that element to be involved? Or is it something that you just kind of need to anticipate and expect when you kind of engage in something like this?
Like, is there any form of sleep training that involves
without crying?
Like no crying?
As I say, a baby cries for many different reasons. They cry because they're hungry. They cry because they're tired. They cry because they're cold. So there's always going to be an element of crying, and I don't believe you can say, hey, if you're going to teach your baby to self-settle independently, with any change, as I say, there's going to be a few tears. But what we try and do is lessen those tears and create a really comfortable, calm environment from the onset, set them up for success so that, we're not seeing, a long period of crying, that's for sure. And we're going in at short intervals, and we tailor those intervals to the baby. It might be 3 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes, might be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes for the older ones. And it's often they love the space, actually, and they respond very quickly to it.
Sure. obviously, I'm sure, I think we spoke and you told me that you've had almost a perfect success rate with, it's a matter of time, it's like some are 2, 3, 5 days and they're sleeping well, some are a few weeks. But have you ever, had a client where you walk into sort of their environment and you do your best, you help them and there aren't improvements? Like, have they checked in after a month? I mean, like, look, we're still sort of in the shitter here. And, do they require more help? Is that something that happens, or is it sort of if they stick to the, stay the course, then things will almost always okay?
Yeah, look, you can never guarantee it. We have seen incredible success with our clients, especially when they stick with the 2 weeks. In saying that, I've had a couple of parents that have started, and been 1 or 2 nights in and then just not felt ready. And that's absolutely okay. Take a pause. And I've actually had a parent come back like 3 months later. So that has happened before. And I've had one client actually that I recall that was a 3-year-old, and we saw some good improvement. I was in home for 4 nights with this toddler, but it was still very inconsistent after 2-3 weeks, and we saw regression actually, and look, I think there was a few things going on at home, but also what we found was once we had kind of worked through those negative sleep associations and addressed his sleep from a behavioural point of view, it still wasn't getting consistently better. And at that point, we saw that there was potentially some apnea coming into play. Sure. And so we referred out that, it was important that he saw a paediatrician and had that assessed. So, yeah, that was one client that I would say we definitely saw some improvement in the nights, but the nights that we were in home, but it started to kind of get worse, over weeks. And look, it's a 2-week program. Some older toddlers, 2, 3, 4-year-olds, need a bit more time, and I'm always there to give the parents that time because at the end of the day, it's my client's success is my success, and that's what we're there to do. We want to get parents into a good pattern with the sleep, so we're there for the long haul, really.
Sure. So what is your best advice for, say, new parents who are wanting to avoid, perhaps bad sleep associations in the future or just bad sleep habits? How can they best set up their child now or from the get-go to, I guess, sleep well?
Yeah.
Listen to last week's episode and do the opposite of everything.
So firstly, look, it's your newborn baby. Like, you just go with the flow for the first few weeks. You enjoy the newborn bubble. You get to know your little baby. You bond, you cuddle, you do anything that makes you feel good, the baby feel good. I think getting the feeding right. Whether you're breastfeeding, bottle feeding, absolutely doesn't matter, but just getting that feeding right is important because if the baby's well fed, they're going to sleep for longer blocks. And then I would say for newborns, like, as I said, I'm a big believer in the swaddle. It replicates the feeling that babies have in the womb. It makes them feel nice and snug and negates the startle reflex that disrupts their sleep, so it sets them up for longer restorative sleep.
Do you remember that? Fletch was a big startler.
Yeah.
He was doing it for ages to the point where we were like, we cannot unswaddle this child because his arms would smack the edge of the crib. And we were like, what do we do?
Yeah.
How do we get him out of this thing?
Yeah.
Sorry, please continue.
So, yeah, having that comfort of the tight swaddle, the cuddle, the hug, I call it, is a good one. And the other little environmental things that you can do, as I said before, with the setting up the environment, what they're used to in the womb. It's the white noise. It's very noisy in there, so white noise is a great one. The dark environment is good. And then how you choose to settle, it's very much hands-on assistance in the early days. Pat and shush is a great method, and doing deciding to do, one nap maybe a day or a bit of time in the bassinet is really important because, that can start to kind of establish good habits. If you use the shush pat to get them to sleep in the cot and, you're seeing success, that's great. I guess they're the big ones.
Yeah, with a newborn especially, I imagine.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk about routine, and I especially at times felt a bit confused about what routine to follow. And I know a lot of parents feel the same, or perhaps you get to an age where the baby's gotten a bit older now and the routine's changed. Some people don't know where to look or where to start. Like, where do you suggest people go, or what can they refer to if they're just stuck? They don't know what routine to follow, what wake windows are best for their child at that age. What can they look at? What can they refer to? For example, we got stuck putting Fletcher down at 9 p.m. We thought his wake windows were like 4 to 5 hours. So obviously got a bit confused. And so where can people go, or what can they do?
Yeah, and look, there's a lot of conflicting information out there on routines and on sleep in general. I think you want to find a resource that you trust, that is sensible for you and that makes sense, and stick to that. So we obviously provide routines for all our clients. Baby sleep changes monthly in that first year.
So you're going to have to come back to our place. Jesus Christ.
Hey, no, because in the first year, Fletcher's won in a couple of days, so
All
he's
good.
going to be sailing through. But yeah, I absolutely. So when you finish a program with us, we provide notes for what to expect in the next 6 to 12 months, and here's your updated routines. Yeah, look, some parents find routines hard, and it's all about finding something that works for you and your family. Awake windows might be easier, and, for a 6-month-old, a 2.5-hour awake window might be easier to follow than a rigid routine that some people find hard. I love a routine, and I actually believe if you know when your baby's got to sleep, so 9:30 till 10:15 in the morning, and 1 till 3 for the lunch nap, ideally, is an example of a routine that we've got Fletch on. It actually gives you flexibility, because you can go, okay, great, that morning nap, we can have that on the go in the carry, in the pram if we want to. So we can go out in the morning, and we just want to prioritise that lunch nap so that, Fletcher's getting a nice restorative sleep at lunch in the cot without the motion, and, he'll therefore be set up for success at night. In terms of, where to look, back to your question, Jadé, there's a lot of routines online, but it's something that we offer routines, and I give them for free. When I'm with my clients for the rest of their life. Like, I'm like, get in touch if you've got a problem. Yeah, but absolutely, because you've spent some good time with me, and I know the baby at that point. We talk about it, we make a tweak, and happy days.
I just want to jump back to the actual settling and the soothing and the space soothing, because I think sometimes it sounds like there's like jargon thrown around that people might actually not understand at all, or there's different interpretations. So when we talk about you going in and settling the child, what does that actually look like for people who have no idea what that means?
Yeah.
What are you doing, basically?
So good question. So space soothing is about giving your baby or your toddler space to learn how to self-settle and get themselves off to sleep. Obviously, sleep is a learned skill, so this is a method that gives them a bit of space to figure it out while still being there to reassure them and to guide them and to comfort them when needed. So it's interval-based training, and as I said earlier, it's we agree what intervals we're comfortable with, and then we go in for a check-in. Now, what a check-in looks like is, again, I work out what the baby responds to best, but most of the time it's going in, it's putting my hand on the baby, it's going, shh, 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 time to sleep, Fletch, time to sleep, shh, 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 30 seconds of comfort, and then leaving the room. Sometimes if they're really worked up, I like to pick them up and give them a little cuddle, but that can delay the process a bit and can cause more protest because they're, as I say, expecting that you might feed them or cuddle them or co-sleep or whatever. So keeping it simple is often best, staying consistent with the process, and you'll see really fast results from there.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Nice.
Well, I think that's it. Locke, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Well, just lastly, thank you, not only for what you did for us, you've honestly changed our lives, which is really lovely, because it was a tough year for us, and you brought us out of that in a matter of days, and now we feel like we have a little bit of normality back, and even our relationship's taking a turn because we're getting a little bit more time together and stuff. So yeah, we really appreciate what you've done for our family. But if
we were
people,
close to divorce prior to that.
not that I'm aware of, but
I'm joking.
if,
so much fun.
if people that were listening wanted to learn a little bit more, like where can they go just to get more from you, or if they wanted to inquire about the service?
Yeah, so all our information's on the website, swoopbaby.com. And yeah, feel free to jump into my DMs. Our Instagram, Swoop Baby Co.
Lovely.
Thanks
Beautiful.
so much, Sarah, and thank you again for saving our lives.
Oh, thank you, Jade. It's been amazing.
We
I love
appreciate you.
Fletch. Beautiful life. Yeah.
On to our Ask Mum and Dad, which we end every episode with, and we've kept Sarah around to help us out with this one. And it comes in from someone this week who says, "Hey, Jad and Locke, congrats on bub number 2. Since we had our baby, my partner has become an amazing parent. Attentive, patient, and everything I hoped for. But when it comes to me, it's like I don't exist. No affection, no time, no real connection. I feel like a glorified roommate. Am I being selfish for wanting more when I know how hard the transition into parenting is?"
No, that's so fair. That's hard. Especially as, like, a mother postpartum, your hormones, holy moly, the hormones.
Wow.
I don't know about you, but I was doing a lot of crying.
I know.
I felt very needy.
Yes, and there's so much change.
Yeah.
You do. It's very emotional.
Yeah, it is. But I think that's a very valid feeling, is to want that from your partner. You're still partners at the end of the day, and whilst yes, there's this new human being in the house that you have to like pour a lot of energy and time into. Like, I remember I was like, I think maybe we'd had Fletcher for like a week, and you came home with flowers, and like that was really special for me because it just kind of reminded me that I was still on your mind, and it was little. It was just this little gesture, but it was really nice. You went to the shops, brought home some flowers, and I was like, oh, that's really nice. That made me feel really special. And I think those moments are really important, and we've spoken about this recently, actually, how important it is to continue nourishing your relationship after you've had kids, because it can be really easy to slip into those roommate stages where you just kind of pass each other in the hall and you're so busy with baby. And it's really, really nice to hear that your partner is great with bub. Like, that's really
amazing.
Assuring and amazing. But yeah, I think you're very valid in your feelings.
Yeah, I would say you're definitely valid in your feelings, but I think also maybe you do need to give your relationship a bit of like a grace period in this new time, because it is such a huge transition. I think it would almost be like naive to think that everything would be the same, because there are shifts, and you get to concentrate, the day before the baby comes, you're concentrating on yourself and your partner, and they're the only two people you need to look after. And then you need to look after this thing that solely relies on you for every single second of the day, So it makes sense that your partner's focus, if he's still going to work and then comes home and wants to, be with the baby and bond with the baby, that perhaps that might shift a little bit. But I would say if it shifted for a long, long period of time, then maybe you guys need to have a chat about it and work on a few things. But I think it's natural and normal for it to shift slightly at the beginning in the newborn phase anyway, I would say.
I think it's still okay to bring up. What do you think?
I totally agree. I think it's okay to bring up, and I think, I think it's important, you're not able to do it probably as much as you used to, of course, but carving out a bit of time to reconnect, have dinner together, have a good chat, get out on the weekend with the new bub if you can, go for a walk together, doing little things and being aware of it. Yeah, it is important, because you're absolutely right. You can get totally swamped by this new big transition and this beautiful baby and forget about your beautiful relationship.
Yeah, I don't think you're in the wrong if you just want to bring it up and have a very, gentle conversation and say all that to your husband. Like, you're doing a really amazing job with Bub, and I'm really proud of you, and I'm so stoked and that you've taken this transition really well. But I just feel like maybe we could be spending a little more time focusing on like our relationship. I'm feeling a little bit lonely, perhaps. Like, use your own words and just be open and honest. And I'm sure he'll receive it, with open arms and say, I'm really sorry, I didn't know you were feeling that way. Like, of course, I just got caught up in the chaos of having a newborn. So that's how we all feel, isn't it? You know, we all just get tunnel vision when we have a baby. So it's hard to focus on anything other than baby. You're not thinking about yourself. You're not thinking about your partner. You're not thinking. It's hard to pour energy anywhere but baby.
Totally. But you will get in your groove, and it is short-lived, and time goes so quickly. And, you know, as they get a bit older and you get used to the swing of things, you'll find that time and that connection, hopefully it'll come back.
Absolutely. It's just a phase.
Yeah.
It's not forever.
Well, there you go. You got 2 mums and a dad this week, guys. So hope that helped. And we appreciate you guys listening. And thank you again so much for not only Sarah coming into our house and helping us with Fletch, but coming on today and hopefully giving you guys some insights about, sleep training, her service and sort of what it's all about and how, maybe some tips and tricks you guys can implement yourselves without the service even, and just try and, solve and fix some bad habits that may have popped up in your baby's life. So thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you so
again.
much, guys. It's been great.
We appreciate having you.
Thank you guys for tuning in. And as always, we really, really appreciate it if you're able to leave a cheeky little review, a good one, preferably. We will see you guys next week.
See you next week. Bye.